I want to introduce our two guests today. I am super pleased. I had an opportunity to hear Taylor speak earlier this year, and then of course the conversations that I've had on a couple of occasions with Ana, I'm really just excited for you all to hear from them. So please help me to welcome first Deputy Chief Ana Navarro, who enlisted in the Marine Corps after high school in 1997, serving for 8 years. After transitioning from the military, Ana worked in loss prevention, where she connected with local officers, and she was inspired to join the McKinney Police Department in 2005. Over her distinguished career, Ana has held numerous roles, earning instructor certifications in defensive tactics, don't mess with her, pretty much, de-escalation, and more. She was promoted to Deputy Chief in 2023, now overseeing the department's Professional Services Division. Ana holds a bachelor's in criminal justice and is completing her master's degree in organizational leadership this year. So help me to welcome Ana Navarro. Secondly, I would want to introduce you to Taylor Shedd, founder and CEO of Stimuli, a company at the forefront of AI, education, and workforce development. Stimuli's mission is to make education and career navigation accessible to 8 billion people by transforming brands into metaversities. Founded in 2020, Taylor launched the nation's first educational metaverse in partnership with Dallas ISD. As CEO, she drives the company's vision while focusing on growth and sales. Taylor is a trailblazer in addressing educational inequities through AI and the metaverse, and she's one of only 94 Black women in history to ever raise over $1 million in venture capital. So help me to introduce Miss Taylor Shedd. You'll want to make sure to flip that switch on. I'm just over the top for you all to hear from these ladies. So let's dive in. I wanted to first ask if you could just maybe give the 2-minute version of how you got to where you are in this male-dominated spaces in which you find yourself. Who wants to go first? You're on.
Mine's a simple path, so I don't know that I can take the full 2 minutes, but I guess I was kind of just the oddball in my family, of being a tomboy growing up and not too much into the girly stuff. But in high school, I saw the ROTC, and what they did, a drill performance, and it was kind of like what you see in the silent drill team, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. And so that's what drew me to the military. I think I recruited my recruiter in my sophomore year. He's like, you're going to get me in trouble. Don't talk to me till you're a senior. So yeah, I just kind of was drawn into that field. And a month after I graduated, I was in boot camp and got out of the military, didn't know what to do. I started working at Kohl's. I eventually landed in loss prevention. And was fine there, but didn't really have a direction for my life. And I met some officers as they picked up shoplifters that I caught. And they're like, hey, you should test. You're good at catching people. And I was like, okay, why not? So it was not on my radar at all. I didn't know. I was telling Alyssa, I didn't know what a police officer did. But I went, I took the test, and I passed. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then I got excited about it, and I went through the process, and I got hired, and I was like, cool. And so I went to the academy, and I learned the laws, and I learned the rules, and all that stuff, but I just really didn't have perspective. So my first night on training, the dispatch came over, and they were like, 911, can you respond to, you got a 911 call, please respond to whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's us. We go to those. And then it hit me. I was like, okay. And so I learned a lot, really quick. But I tell people it was a really good fit because I've been there almost 20 years and I love it and I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So.
I love it. That's awesome. All right, Ms. Taylor.
I think you're so cool. I wanted to be a firefighter at one point, back like I was in a beauty pageant as a kid, and when they asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up, I was like, a firefighter.
My Marine Corps buddies entered me into a beauty pageant when I was mortified. That's a joke they did.
Yeah. Well, to answer the question as far as how I landed here, I'm just going to give you guys what I call Sports Center highlights on my journey. Cover a lot of territory in a small amount of time. I think the first thing is I'm the youngest of 7 kids who all earned a Division I scholarship to play basketball or football in college. So I'm not in the business of sports, but I'm obsessed with sports. And when you think about sports culture, there's a lot of joking, there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of like direct feedback and criticism that you're given. So I learned I love sports, and I'm used to team environments. I think the second thing is really the influence of my mom. I don't mean that in a cliche way, but I vividly remember when I was in 6th grade and my mom told me, like, do you know you could be a CEO one day? And I'm like, well, what is that? And she's like, well, you would be running a company. And I'm like, okay, well, how do you do that? And she says, okay, you either need to get a business degree or a law degree. That's the path you can take. And that's a conversation I remember, and there's a lot of other conversations I don't. Right, and then my mom and a speech teacher I had in school, the speech teacher told my mom, do you know Taylor could be like a Condoleezza Rice? And I had no idea who she was. I, came to find out who she was. But just to say, like, early on, the small things that we say to the next generation really do matter, and the exposure that we have. And so I'll just go to chapter 2, which is like life in college and how I got to this point. So I was really passionate about wanting to become a reconstructive plastic surgeon. I know that's very specific. There's 3 reasons why. I understood biology in a way I didn't understand other subjects. I knew I wanted to help people. I saw the Operation Smile team come to one of our biology classrooms, and I was
awesome.
like, this is how I can actually help people. And then the third thing is I grew up watching Grey's Anatomy. So when you put all that together, you get somebody that wants to be like McSteamy or McDreamy as a reconstructive plastic surgeon. So third chapter, and the last thing is failure brought me to this point. So I was a collegiate athlete playing basketball. I was sitting in a chemistry class, and it was at that moment I realized chemistry was math. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I am not going to be able to make it in this degree plan. A lot of other things happened with me trying to understand my identity at the time in college, being in Los Angeles, far away from home. And ultimately, I ended up losing my scholarship, which was such a big deal because our entire family had this legacy of like, you go to school, you earn the scholarship, and you complete playing basketball or football. And so at that time, which is now like 15 or 16 years ago, I had God and some mentors in my life that pointed me a new direction, which was entrepreneurship. And I fell in love with it. It actually became the best way for me to learn, but I wanted to solve the problem that I had felt happen, which was 1, education was not that accessible. And then 2, we could have done a better job of preparing me as a K-12 student for what I would need to do in college to be successful. So that is like my quick story in 3 chapters.
I love it. Yes. So really for the 2 of you, different yet some similarities there as well. Now, I want you all to know that when we met for planning, part of what came out is that what sits before you, these ladies are introverted. And yet they're in spaces where they've had to learn to be very much out there, to really put yourself out there. So I'm just listening to the 2 of you tell your story in such an extroverted way, which is tremendous. Taylor, you picked up on something that I would love for you to also add your dynamic to. The influence of your mother and mentors really made a difference in you getting to where you are. Who is that for you, Ana, that has really been someone that's spoken life into you, helped you to see what maybe you didn't see for yourself?
Growing up, it's certainly my mother as well. Her path, when she became a single mom, with my parents divorced when I was 9, and before that we had a very stable space and living. But after that, it did get chaotic. We moved different states. We moved every year, it seemed like. Just always a struggle. But my mom just never stopped. She never gave up, even if that meant, we had roommates, we had arrangements, watch the kids while she traveled for work. She just made it work. And she just never stopped. Even today, she's 72, and the woman does not stop. She's involved in a ton of different things, and it's just kind of her example of just getting it done. And so that's who I had growing up. Is just that's where I get my work ethic from, I guess, and that drive. And then I've just had really good examples, in my fields, whether it's Marine Corps or the police department. I've had really good examples that I am drawn to, and I've had ones that are not good that I've just learned, okay, I don't want to be like that, or I want to stay away from that. So I just kind of, lean on those that I like qualities in and identify with, and that's where I find my support.
I love that. I see you nodding your head, Taylor. How does that resonate with you in the journey that you've been on?
Yeah, really just talking about the resilience that you saw in your mother deeply resonates with me. And I love saying this in a room like this. So as a kid, we see everything that's happening in a household. But when we show up to rooms like this as women, we are not talking about the mess that's happening at home. Sometimes that's being caused by like husbands, partners, like all sorts of different things. And just to say, like, my dad was causing my mom a little trouble growing up, right? And to see the resilience of my mom, that no matter what, we had to be at school. We went to a little private school, so we were, dressed well, we studied well, no matter what was happening and the distress she was under, she always made sure we were okay. And I think the other lesson about that is like, your kids are watching, and my mom still apologizes to me today about the things that she's like, I'm sorry, I wish I had done this. I'm like, Mom, I think we're okay. I think we did fine. And what I would even go as far to say is that if I did not see these struggles that my mom was going through and some of these hard times, I don't think I would be where I am. I don't think that Inbound Resilience would be here. And so for those of you mothers who have these things that you're like holding on to, that, oh my gosh, I've set my kid up for failure, in all actuality, it might be the thing that makes them them.
That is so strong right there. On both cases, the fact that I think as women specifically, which is what this is for, we tend to want to hide the fact that there are struggles, that things aren't always exactly the way that we want them to be. Let's hang on the word resilience for a moment, because I believe there's so much resilience needed as women, specifically when we find ourselves in the male-dominated spaces. So I would like for each of you to speak to how you've learned resilience as well as shown it in places where you encounter gender bias, stereotypes about what a woman should be or what she could do, and really share a little bit about how that's been part of your journey getting to where you are today. You want to kick us off, Ana?
Oh, sure. So I guess my experience, I'll draw from the police department for the most part. It's been interesting. McKinney's growing, and our police department has grown. I've been there almost 20 years. So from where we were to where we are now is just night and day. It's always been a great department, a great culture, a great place to work. But in the Marine Corps too, and there, when I look back, I can think of specific instances of bias or stereotypes or anything else. One example I gave is when I got hired, I feel like women, you had to come in. I explain this. So when a male gets hired as a police officer, they come in and they're already given that credibility. They're like, okay. And then they can either gain more or lose it, but they're on that even playing field. Well, when women came in, and I was told this, so it's not my perception, that's just kind of what they said. I kind of came in down here, and I have to prove myself. So they were saying like, well, we don't really know about you until you get in your first fight, because we don't know that you're going to have our back, right? Because that's a real thing for us. We're life and death. So if I'm in a fight for my life, I need to have a partner that's going to come in and save me, not somebody's going to be like, oh, that's a lot, let me go run away. So with women, the perception is that I don't know about you. I don't know if you can do it. But the guys automatically get that credibility. So once you get in your first fight, as it was back then, or you prove yourself that you're capable of doing this job, then you elevate yourself and you're on an even playing field. Today, over 20 years, as we've hired more women, as women come in and they're completely capable and just amazing officers and can do the job well, the men notice that. When your credibility and your performance speak for itself, you're not coming in saying, hey, you need to respect me, you need to do this, because male or female, if somebody does that, you're automatically like, what are you hiding here? But if you come in and show it, right, you're gonna get the respect and credibility you need. So as we've hired more of these capable women, now I know I'm over our hiring division. When we hire and I send them over to patrol and into the department, that gap has changed, right?
Wow.
So it's starting to level out to where now everybody's coming in and everybody's got to prove themselves one way or the other, because we've had guys do the same thing, you know, they're not stepping up during a fight or whatever, and they're just as judged as harshly as we are. But the entry, I think, has evened out over the last 20 years, and it's just exciting to see that happen and that it can happen. And I've had really good conversations with my male coworkers. They've seen bias happen to me in meetings. My boss, I had a male coworker in a meeting as I was speaking, like literally put his hand up in front of my face and like just stopped me from talking. And, you know, I find in those situations, if I sit back, like I didn't address it right away. My chief, like his eyes got this big and it's happened twice with him in the room. And he was just like in shock. And I just let it go. He has talked about that to other men and everything, that instance where he saw it. So when it happened again, I just sat back and he redirected that officer. He's like, no, listen to what she's saying. So they become a really big advocate, but it's when they see it happen. He was like, I was really scared about what you were about to do more than anything. but I was like, nope. I just needed to let it unfold and let them do that observation and let it sink in for them. And I've seen that happen so much with working in a male-dominated field. That transition happened. That's what I love the most.
Yeah, that's good. Taylor, please.
Great story. I'm like, can I join? You're the hiring. Can I join the police department?
We are hiring. Come on, let's go.
So a couple of thoughts come to mind when I think about the word resilience. And the first thing I want you guys to know about me is I had the most diverse upbringing as far as my school education. So what I mean by that is, first grade, I was in a Jewish private school. Second through eighth grade, I was in a very conservative Christian school, predominantly white. I then went to a Catholic school my freshman year in high school, and then I went to a public school, and then I went to a Jesuit college. Okay.
Wow.
I got that out of the story. So I bring that up because I am used to being in environments where not everybody looks like me. And so not only that, I grew up with a lot of little kids who, you know, when they talk about kids say what their parents are saying. So in second grade, I had a girl tell me, I've never seen a black girl before. Can I call you black girl? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, but like, hey, I'm 35, so like, don't be shocked. It wasn't like, 5 days ago that happened. It's a different world back then. Like Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky were like, that's like what kids are talking about. I know that's crazy. Anyway, I bring that up because I am so used to being the other in a room. Some folks that grew up in a predominantly black area that show up in rooms and then notice people are looking at them different would notice more than I would because it's something I've grown up with. Mm. The second thing that I would say is like, it's maybe no secret, but like in black households, what black parents tell their kids is like, you have to be 10 times better. And that's kind of what you were saying, which is like you came in lower and then you had to prove yourself to just get up here. And so there's a benefit to having this mentality that you just need to show up 10 times better because you literally end up being better. And the last thing that I would say, and this is just my experience, is like in the venture capital space, so you guys heard the quote of me being the 94th black woman to raise $1 million. That's a crazy stat that still shocks me. And I've raised a lot more money than that now. So I'm like the second black woman in Texas to ever raise over $10 million. Yeah. And I bring that up because in the venture capital space, less than 1% of capital deployed goes to black founders. Less than that goes to black female founders, and even less than that goes to black female founders in education because there's not much money going to education. And so I say all that because that's a stat, that's a reality that none of us can debate, it's just there. But my experience in showing up to different spaces is like, I can't give myself the excuse that somebody's treating me a certain way because I'm a woman, because I'm black, or because I'm young. And so it's almost like I don't even see it. And that might not be a good thing, right? To be desensitized to certain things. But that's just my experience as somebody that like, if somebody's telling me no, I have to look critically at myself because looking and saying, oh, they did it because they're, because I'm black or because I'm a woman feels more like an excuse for an athlete, right? Like I'm taking accountability. How else can I get better? And so I think the last thing just to say is like, I have had moments where I've had to, I think our intuition is something that I would call all of you to stick to. Because you're so used to being in spaces where somebody else is supposed to be right and you might have a good opinion. But there's times where I've had to speak up for what I believed in. And whether it was a year later, 3 years later, I was thankful that I stayed rooted in what I believed in. And the quick example is when I first got money to develop this video game that was the first in the world, there was a guy who had been the CEO of 7-Eleven that said, I believe we need to do something in VR. I think that is the future of learning. And I had to argue with this 70-year-old man and 2 other folks that were supposed to have been way more accomplished than me and say, no, that's not it. Kids love video games. And VR devices are not that accessible yet, but kids love video games. And today, the reason we're in the position that we're in is because we went the route of video games as opposed to VR. But as a young person, I think I was 30 at that time, I had to stand up to the former CEO of 7-Eleven, former CEO of Blockbuster, and say, I don't think that's right. And I almost had to feel disrespectful as, Southern girls, right? Like we feel like, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, whatever. But I'm like, no, this is the thing. So with all of that, just stick to your intuition because you might believe that somebody else is right because of how you've been trained by society to think about like your own place in the world.
That is so good. Yes, you can give both of these ladies a hand. I want to bring something up. I love how, as each of you have shared in that space, like how it's fleshed out in your life. I remember when we were chatting, you talked about when you were in the Marine Corps, talked about women Marines versus Marines. And speaking with Renee, she was saying that you really long for the day where it's not female founder, it's just founder, right? And so hearing you talk about feeling that gap has lessened over the last 2 years, I think is incredibly important. So knowing that you're visibly seeing a lesson in the gap, you just advocated literally for having your voice, knowing your voice, speaking your voice, following that intuition, that wisdom that you've had. I want to talk a little bit about leadership and influence because you're both in places and spaces where you have the opportunity to be a difference maker for other women. So first, in those roles, how would you, or how are you advocating for more inclusivity of women in these roles and opportunities, or how you envision that being part of what you do? Who wants to go first?
If the police officer says do something, phenomenal question. And one thing I'll just say, like, as personal ambition, sometimes in the space I'm in, as a for-profit company, personal ambition is like, why aren't you a nonprofit? It's like, because I have personal ambition. Well, why do I have that? I want to take a company public because I want young women and young minorities to see that, like, we can build technology the world needs and loves too. Whereas when I was growing up, the people I was looking up to was like, I love Steve Jobs, so I could get like blush and get really far on that. But, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, like you can name it, right? But it's all a certain type of male that sits in that space. So my personal ambition is one way that I'm saying the higher I go, the higher that everybody else sees that they can go. So That's one thing that I'm just modeling through my behavior. At our company, we have something like 45% women, 55% men, which is extremely hard to do considering 90% of our workforce is technology folks, building and engineers. And then as far as like what I envision for the future, it really kind of comes back to the technology I'm building. Like I want young kids in middle school to use our game and to see themselves being in places that they could never imagine themselves being. And so ultimately, I think what I'm saying is it's through action, it's through our technology, that I imagine a world where it doesn't matter male, female, rural, urban, suburban, developing country versus developed country. You have the access to the tool that can analyze who you are, what you're interested in, and provide a pathway for you to get there. So it's just all about removing barriers to be in that place of leadership.
I love that. Yeah. Go ahead, Anna.
I think just to piggyback off that, for me, it's about opening your eyes to opportunity. And that's kind of my story. I never thought about being a police officer. Growing up, boys tend to play, the cops and robbers, but not girls. So it wasn't on my radar until somebody tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, you'd be good at this. Why don't you try it? And I'm like, okay. So I'm a very big advocate of just doing that within our department, whether it's men or women, but especially the women, because sometimes we just don't, it's just not in our wheelhouse because of society norms, how we're brought up. It's just, you don't ever think about it until somebody just turns the light on. So, we had a female recently, tapped her on the shoulder. Hey, you should try out for SWAT. You've got all the great qualities. Okay. Maybe wasn't on her radar before, but she did, and she's the first woman on our SWAT team in the McKinney history. So, and the standards weren't adjusted or anything like that. So I am an advocate for, opening the door to get you here, but then you earning it once you get here. I'm over hiring and recruiting, and so because of my story, we talk about minority recruiting and black males, black females, Hispanic. How do we get more people that want to become police officers? And I say it's in the recruiting. It's going and just saying, hey, you'd be great at this. Why don't you apply? And a lot of times we get the reaction like, really? Me? Like, yes, you, come on. And so it's not something as a female or maybe as a minority that we ever thought of to be a police officer or to open a door, whatever the company is, the opportunities that are out there, until you go get it or somebody just says, reminds you, why not you?
I want to piggyback off of what you shared. So everybody, this is Kyrie right here. He's like my right-hand guy. And I think the people around you are so important, because when you talk about the intersection of leadership and resilience, there's things that we've embodied between just me and 3 of our co-founders that the rest of the company now embodies. And there's 2 things. One, when we fall, I can call them and basically be like, I'm either sad or like I'm disappointed or I'm this. And their response, one's a male, one's a female, is like, we got this. It's already written. Or if there's a lot of hard work, Kyrie's like, woo, let's get it, And it's like, sounds so small, but to be discouraged and to be able to go to like a small cabinet of people to get uplifted is very powerful. And the same thing also happens when you think about honesty. So Kyrie and I can call each other and I can be like, dude, I don't like what you did in that meeting. And here's why. And then he'll say, all right, well, I understand what you're saying. Here's why I did that action. And I'm like, okay. But this is what I need you to hear. And he's like, I support you. And I know that my support for you tells everybody behind me that they should support you the same way. So I hear you and I'm going to do that. But that level of vulnerability and honesty is something that hopefully exists within your marriage, right? It's not always something that can be present. So not only the uplifting side of it, but the ability to be very direct and very honest in a concise way where you're not having to bring out the cinnamon rolls and make it super sweet, I think is super important. So I think the people around you also help you.
I appreciate what both of you shared about that. I wrote a note. I hope you're hearing some common themes between these 2 ladies, 2 very different spaces. And yet the commonality of the need for resilience, the need to take personal ownership, that I literally wrote the law of the lid, that because you're saying yes, because the 2 of you are stepping into those places, you are raising the lid of what's possible for the people who are observing, who will come after you, and also for the people that you surround yourself with. I think that's an important piece. Well, I want to make sure that I reserve some time for navigating what, as 2 women in these spaces, you have a life outside of work. So I want you to share maybe how you they're like, really? I do? It's like, where does that happen? Exactly. How you manage the personal demands of life, because we all have them, as well as the expectations of the leaders that you are. Ana, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Life's chaotic. I know we talk about balance and finding time for yourself and finding time for family and finding time for work, and all of that's important and you have to do all of it, but the balance aspect, I'm not sure if that's a complete reality, right? Because if you're giving to one, something else is sacrificing. So, I'm a single mom. I've got 3 kids and sports. And if I'm not at work, I'm running to do something with them and I'm completing my master's degree. So I'm weird and crazy, but to take all of that on. But it's just, whether you want to do it, you just need to do it. Like, level up and let's go. That's where that resiliency comes in, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. The kids need you. Carve out time, just make it work, I guess, has just been my motto. And sometimes I run on fumes and it is not balanced at all. But I kind of live for that. That's kind of where I do my best work, right? A little bit of a pressure player there. So the kids see that. They see, hopefully, what I saw in my mom, they see in me. That would be great, but it's just goal setting and doing whatever it takes to get it done, like whether it's at home, at work, or whatever. I think finding an organization that has a culture that supports you, what you're looking for, is important. I have a department that supports and prioritizes family. So obviously you don't get everything. I'm not going to make every single game. I'm going to miss holidays at times, but they value family. So they're very understanding. If I'm like, I got to leave early to pick up my kid. I got to take this day off to do that. My vacation days are spent because the daycare's closed and I need to stay home with my kids. It's not spent going on a vacation. But that's just life. And, I know it'll pay off and I enjoy it. And, just finding the time to dedicate and be focused when I'm at work. I'm very focused at work. I don't think about my kids too much. I don't think about home too much. But when I'm doing my schoolwork, I'm there. When I'm at my kids, I try to be present in that moment. So just trying to channel all of those different avenues, whatever you have, and giving it your best while you're there, and just push through. You get tired, but you push through.
Yeah, I think this is a great question, so I'm going to jump around as I have been a little bit. So I think the first important thing to know is all of us are here and called to do different things. Some of us are called to be at home with our kids, and you might be raising the next president or the next it thing, right? And so I just want to make a differentiation between the idea of being a leader or working hard or being, anything. All of us are here for different reasons, and I think that's really important. So whatever we're called to do, giving our best towards that, I think, is the number one thing. The second thing I'll tell you guys is I was a high school athlete, and I won a couple state championships here in Texas. The last state championship I won was in my junior year, and I had so much anxiety that I did not score a single point in that game. I bring that up because as I went on through life and I got to college and I earned the scholarship, then I lost the scholarship, I'm like, I am tired of getting to the main stage and not performing like I'm on the main stage. So there is something that's innate in me that came from childhood that's like, I'm going to get to the stage and I'm going to kick ass and take names at this stage because I have some unfinished business to do of the past. So I bring all of that up because the mixture between your life calling and who you are is really important. I feel like God put me on this earth to do this work because there's so many inequities in our education systems that someone has to do it. And so there are times where I am exhausted, but I put it on the burden of this is what I'm called here to do. And this is the role or the mission, the life mission that I've accepted for myself. But I want to be very honest with you all that as I start raising this lid, it does come with more pressure. And I can talk about how I love to watch sports and I love to call my friends and FaceTime and be on the phone and laughing with them, but that's truly not what gets me through. Just so you know a little bit more about me, I travel a lot. So 3 days ago, I just got off of a 10-day business trip where I was in 3 cities in 3 different states in 10 days. And then we're hosting some Stimuli folks in Dallas this week. And then I'm going to DC, and then I'm back in Dallas before I go back to DC. It's almost unbearable how hard it is. And yeah, I get frazzled, right? I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I am. I'm waking up in a hotel room, what city am I in? And so what I'm trying to get to is the fact of as I accomplish more, there are more pressures and I am more aware of them. There is more anxiety. It's not like a road where it's oh, I'm doing this thing and it's easy and I'm having fun. It is very, very damn hard. I almost said an F word, but I'm not going to say that. But the way that you get through all of that is really understanding why God put you on this earth. And I just want you all to know again that just because I'm called to be the founder and CEO doesn't mean my role on this earth is more important than other people's roles, which might be raising kids or anything in between.
Yes, I appreciate that very, yes. Man, We could talk for a long time. I want to, because our time will come to a close, I want you all to think about advice, right? And in some ways, you've been infusing advice, right, in the midst of your responses. But specifically for the woman in the room, someone who might hear this later, they're thinking about entering or they find themselves in a more male-dominated space. I would love what maybe your top one or two pieces of advice you would give, and specifically the mindset you would encourage them to bring to it.
I guess a couple of the advice topics that come to my head. I think it's really important to know your stuff. I mentioned competence earlier, being strong and confident in the knowledge of whatever job it is that you do, whether it's real estate, whether it's finances, police officer, tech, whatever it is. Like, know your stuff so that you're competing with anybody, male, female, around you, because in my experience, that's what's given me the most I've lost credibility in the beginning because I didn't know my stuff, and I realized, okay, my reputation is in the tank here. And so I really dug in and learned it, and now much better place, and I have a lot of credibility now. The other thing I would say is really important is just your outlook on missteps, failures, or things that don't work out. They're going to happen, okay? And sometimes they're justified. Sometimes you're not the best person for the job. Sometimes the timing wasn't right, and sometimes they're not justified, whether it's a good old boy system or whether, you were passed over when you really should have gotten the position. Either way, your outlook in response to that is going to be what matters. So if you stay in that moment, I was telling Elizabeth, like I tell people and I tell myself, if I experience disappointment, if I didn't get the promotion, because I got passed over for deputy chief 4 times. A lot of them were very justified, all of them. I mean, they're wonderful. The timing, and when you look back, it always works out like it was the best thing for me. But it's disappointing. So you need to experience it. You need to own it and go through that and feel that disappointment and loss, but you can't stay there. So I tell people, like, hey, I'm getting advice, you didn't get it, you've got 24 hours. Go home, have your pity party, go eat some ice cream, go cry about it, live in the moment, get through it, process it. But when you come back, we're going to start again. It's new. You're done with it. Let's go. Figure out a way around. Okay? If it wasn't justified thing or unjustified thing, figure out a way around, figure out a way through, figure out a way to get to it the next time. Just don't quit and don't stay in that. You can get stuck in a victim mentality or in that kind of a depression state of just sulking about a loss or a disappointment. So what are we going to do to fix it? What are we going to do to get better? Who are we going to talk to show, a different side of this? Let's go. So that's mainly what I would say, is just to know your stuff and push through when you have a setback.
Awesome. Taylor.
Yeah, it's such a big question, but what comes to my mind is you'll never lose by betting on yourself. And then the next thing, to Ana's point, is like you will fail. And so the goal is not to try and avoid failure. I think the goal is to learn from your failure. And then the last thing I'll say is you're in this position as well, but I have a lot of men and women working for me. And women, you truly are kick-ass and capable in a way that men sometimes are not. So I thought it was funny when you said you get in and it's like the men are up here, the women down here. I was like, that's actually not true. But the ability to multitask, right? The ability, and also when you said about a female having your back, I'm like, the mama cup doesn't leave the cup, right? The daddy's you got it. But yeah, just to reiterate, always bet on yourself. The goal is not to avoid failure. This other thing that you might never hear is we call ourselves entrepreneurial scientists at Stimuli. And because I have a science background, it's like a hypothesis. This is what you think is going to happen. Get out and test it. What does the data say? Start back at step 1. What is the new hypothesis? So that's why failure is not what you're trying to avoid. You're just trying to get more information.
I love that. We like to say failure is the feedback we need to move forward. Failure indicates that you're doing something to move forward. I love that you both brought that in. So I want to just encourage each of you to there were so many amazing sound bites from today's topic, and to find one. So right now, think about where you are, what's happening in your life and your career, what's one thing you heard today that you're going to anchor before you walk out of here? That you're going to say, I'm going to dwell on that. I'm going to see how I might implement that, how that could shift my mindset. So what is it? I'm giving you 30 seconds. Turn to someone to your left or right and tell them. Go. Turn to someone on your left or right and tell them.
I love your examples. And that hypothesis, I'm going to have to remember that.
Oh my goodness, I have a chemistry degree. I don't know if I told you that.
No.
I love the idea of entrepreneurial scientist. I'm like, yes.
So D Magazine wrote an article on me, and it was the most amazing article to hear somebody like twist your words and everything. And the first couple sentences, like in 9 words, Taylor interweaves a comparison between entrepreneurship and science.
Yes, I love it.
Or the scientific.
Love.
I was just like, when they said that back to me, I was like, okay, that's a thing.
That is
now
a
made it
thing.
Like a part of our value statement. It's stimuli.
That is totally a thing.
And it applies to anything.
Absolutely.
I'll use that when I go to work.
Yes.
You know.
All right. Thank your partner. And I want to make sure that we wrap this up real quickly before I bring up our event host to just share briefly. Taylor, tell us how people can connect with you, your social media handles, etc.
So we're trying to build a community here in Dallas. And so connect with me online. Instagram, you can find me at MISS Taylor Shed, TAYLOR SHEAD. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. And as soon as you do that, you'll quickly see like where the stimuli pages are to connect. But I really do want to connect with you. I do respond to LinkedIn messages. And if you message me, like whether it's like, hey, I'm struggling with this, what are your thoughts? Or like, hey, keep going, I'm watching you. All of it is extremely meaningful to help us keep going, during times that are hard. So I look forward to connecting with you.
That's how I got you here, was a LinkedIn message. That's where I started. I love it. Do you have any social media handles that they need to know about?
Well, 911.
Yes, that's awesome.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. Our McKinney Police Department, we have Instagram. You can reach out there. I do have some cards. I can give you my personal contact information, but we do push out a lot of good stuff there. So those are, and we
911. Can I speak to all the? Yep, that's right. The deputy.
All right, let me, before we finish up today, just stay right here, ladies. I want to introduce our event host. We are so grateful for Touchmark. So Ellen, is Ellen in the room? Ellen, come on up, please. May I borrow your microphone? Yeah, we wanted Ellen to be able to share a little bit about Touchmark. Didn't they do an amazing job with our setup, our food? So tell us, please, Ellen.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, ladies. Y'all were amazing. Touchmark has been 10 years in the making to get to McKinney. And so we are honored. Last night we celebrated our first birthday. So we have been here now a year. We are a full continuum luxury senior living community. We have independent care, assisted living, memory care, and then we have some specialty neighborhoods. My colleague Rochelle is here with me, and we would be happy to answer any questions. We have literature over as you're leaving. Please take some, but we are just so thrilled to be part of this community and living in relationships with you guys. So thank you.
And I do want to say that Fred asked what was the minimum age to be here, and it was 55.
It is 55.
So Fred has one more year. He has one more year. And so, but thank you, Fred, with Fred Shots, for taking care of our audio today, our media needs. Appreciate you. All right, and with that, you are dismissed. Thank you so much for being here. We are so grateful for you.